Hello everyone. Welcome to the Investment Management class. I am Impa Villappa, Associate Professor, Department of Management Sciences, Maharaja Institute of Technology, Mysore. Previously, we have discussed fifth module, which was about the modern portfolio theory. In that, we also did the problems related to Sharpe's single index model, capital asset pricing model, that is CAPM, and arbitrage pricing theory. We learned what is CLM and SML lines. All that we learned in the previous sessions, that is in the previous module. In today's class, we'll be doing module 6, which is related to the market efficiency and behavioral finance. In this module actually comprises of three parts. One is the market efficiency and behavioral finance. Another one is portfolio management strategies, and then it involves portfolio performance evaluation. These three parameters it involves. In today's class, we will be discussing the first concept, which is market efficiency and behavioral finance. I've made a mistake here. Okay. Market efficiency and behavioral finance. So, related to that, we'll be discussing in today's class. Okay, so in today's class, let's begin with the market efficiency first. Let's know and understand what is market efficiency, what are the different types and trades, and let's know about it. So coming to the market efficiency refer to any metric that measures the information dispersion in the market. Okay, important is information dispersion, like how the information reaches the investors. Earlier also I have told about this, like many of the investors, they get some investors get early information and some investors get late information. So but market efficiency is where it's like we measure the information dispersion equally in the market, like how it has an impact. Okay, an efficient market is one where all information is transmitted perfectly. Everyone receives the information completely. It receives perfectly. It receives completely means everyone receives the entire information and instantly. Like everyone receives the information very quick, instant, and of no cost means the information it will not be paid to get the information. Everyone receives the information for free. It has to be concentrating in 4 parameters, that is an efficient market is where all the information is transmitted perfectly, completely, instantly and with no cost. Okay, these are the 4 things which is very much important in market efficiency. And coming to the types of market efficiency, there are 2 types of market efficiency: operational efficiency and informational efficiency. Operational efficiency is measured by the factors like time taken to execute the orders and the number of bad deliveries, like the delivery which is not completed, that's called bad delivery, which is not executed. So the time taken and the time taken to execute an order and the number of bad deliveries, based on these factors, the operational efficiency is measured, that is the operation is measured. And informational efficiency is where it is measured on the basis of the swiftness of the market reaction to the new information in the form of industrial policy, political policy and all these. Okay, like based on the information like economic reports, company analysis, industrial policy, economic policy, based on all of these, the impact of these information on the market is measured. How quickly it reacts to the information, that is measured in the informational efficiency. So these are the 2 types of market efficiency. And the traders, the different types of traders which we come across in the market efficiency is liquidity traders and informational traders. Based on traders, if you have to distinguish, like liquidity traders, they might sell the shares to pay the bills. They don't investigate before making any investment, like they want to get the money, they sell the shares and immediate they get the cash in order to pay the bills, that is liquidity traders. They don't have any kind of prior commitments, that is called liquidity traders. They don't investigate, they don't do any kind of research, nothing. Okay, they just make they whatever they shares they have, whenever they feel it is a need to pay the bills, they just sell the shares. And informational traders, like they are the people who analyze before adopting any buying and selling strategies on the basis of technical and fundamental analysis, and then do the trading. These are the people who do all the market research, informational analysis, all these they do. They pay concentration to fundamental analysis and also to technical analysis. Based on that, they make the investment and take up the decisions. So this is about the two types of traders, that is liquidity traders and informational traders. Okay, so we have discussed about the meaning and types. Let's go to an important concepts which definitely will come in your exams, that is random walk theory. Okay, so in 1863, a French mathematician turned stockbroker named Jules Regnault, okay, published a book. The book's name was The Study of Chance and the Philosophy of Exchange, and his work is considered one of the first attempt to use such an advanced mathematics in the analysis of stock market. Till then, no one had tried with that. Influenced by his work, Louis Bachelier, another French mathematician, published a paper titled Theory of Speculation. Okay, in this paper he credited with establishing the ground rules that would be the key to use the mathematics and statistics in the stock market, so which can be used. And in 1964, American financial economist Paul Kuttner published a book titled The Random Character of Stock Market Prices, considered this as a classic text in the field of financial economics. It inspired many other workers who were working on the a random walk down Wall Street. This this paper was established by Burton Maliki. Okay, he is another person who is into the classic theory, and also one more by Egini Pharma, that is random walks in stock market prices. Like this, the work started developing and taking new turns. The price movements with random walk theory are randomly distributed in such a way that the present states are independent of the past states, and in view of such random movements entry into the market, any time which gives same returns for the same risk to the investors. So this random walk theory is completely about the information dispersion which lives into different forms, that will learn it in the forms. Before knowing the forms, let's see what are the assumptions which are made in order to build this random walk theory. Okay, the first assumption is we had assumption in CAPM and APT. In the same way, the market is perfect without any trade restrictions, like they don't have any kind of trade restrictions in the market. That is the first assumption. The second assumption is market absorbs all the information very quickly and efficiently. It was like if there is any negative information, obviously it has an impact and the stock market comes down. If there is any positive information, immediately the stock market boosts up. This is the kind of assumption which is made, that is market absorbs all the information very quickly and effectively. Okay. The third assumption is information is free and costless, you do not pay anything and quickly available to all at the same time. That is what about the market efficiency which we learned. It is available to everyone at free of cost and it is very quick. Okay. The fourth assumption is like information is unbiased and it is very correct. There is no false information which is given, it is correct. That is the fourth information. Fourth assumption. Fifth assumption is like market players can analyze the information quickly and the information is observed in the market through buying and selling. So whatever information is you receive, you do not hold it for yourself. Immediately that has to put into action, like buying or selling the stocks, that has to be put into action. That is the fifth assumption. It will be done like that. That is an assumption. Okay, and the last assumption is demand and supply pressures are observed in the market through price changes. Such absorption leads to like quick and prompt movements in which the prices in which the randomly it is done. Like demand and supply fluctuates due to the price changes, and immediately this is also observed in the market. This is the last assumption. assumption. So coming to the assumption, market is perfect, that's the first, and it absorbs all the information and it reflects on buying and selling, and demand and supply also has an part to play in the random walk theory, and information is costless and it is available to all equally, and the information is very much correct and it is unbiased. So this is about the assumptions which are made in the random walk theory. So coming to the before going to forms, efficient market hypothesis. So what is this efficient market hypothesis? This was developed by Iginia Pharma, as I said, and it states that it is impossible to beat the market because price already incorporate and reflect all the information. So he is stating that it is very much difficult and impossible to beat the market. It can only even in Dow theory we just learnt about it. This is just a tool to understand the market and not to beat the market. So it is very difficult to beat the market. You can't be 100% accurate. So he says that because it's already been incorporated and it already reflects all the information. So you cannot beat the market. And this theory is also very controversial, as it states like security prices reflect all the available information, making it fruitless to pick stocks. Immediately you get an information, it is being reflected. So whichever stock you pick, it does not give any good fruit. Okay, and this is that's the reason it is criticized. Okay, and under this hypothesis, anytime you want to buy or sell securities, you are engaged in the game of chance and not skill. You cannot use your mental skills and where your analytical skills, and you analyze perfectly that you definitely are going to earn profit. Nothing like that. It's just a chance and not your testing of skills. And if the markets are very much efficient, it means that prices always reflect the information, and there is no way that you can bargain with the buying price. So that is about the efficient market hypothesis. In this efficient market hypothesis, there are three forms of market efficiency. The three forms are strong form, semi-strong form and weak form. So strong, semi-strong, you can even call this as semi-weak, okay, because it is partial. Strong form, semi-strong form and weak form. These are the three forms of random walk theory. The answer for random walk theory and efficient market forms of efficient market or efficient market hypothesis, it is one and the same. So in the exam, if they give random walk theory, or if they give efficient market hypothesis, or if they give forms of efficient market, all these has the same answer, where you have to write strong form, semi-strong form and weak form. This can also be in the form of, you can put it in the pictorial representation, and I'll tell you how after explaining these three. Okay, let's move on to the strong form of efficient market hypothesis. Stock prices fully reflect all the information from the public and private sources. That is known as strong form, means all the information is reflected. Okay, and this implies that no group of investors should be able to consistently derive above average risk adjusted rate of return. This assumes like perfect market in which all the information is available for cost free and it is available for everyone at the same time. Okay, this is about the strong form. So this we represent actually with three triangles. We represent this with three triangles. The strong form is which reflects all information. So we put dots like this, and we put complete dots in this, and more number of dots. As it reflects all the information. Okay, coming to the second one, which is semi-strong form. In this form, only the public information, including like market, non-market information, those are reflected. Okay, and this implies the decision made on new information after it is public. If any new CEO is appointed, or the existing CEO expires, or if there is any merger or something tie-up happening, all these are which reflects on the market, and this does not lead to above average risk adjusted profits from those transactions. It does not have any impact on the above average adjusted profits. Okay, so for this we put dots, but not as it reflects all the information. That's it. Okay, this is the outer part is the strong form, the inner one is semi-strong form, and within is the weak form. And what is this weak form? Weak form actually reflects only historical sequence of prices, rate of returns, trade volume data, or any other market generated information. Only that is reflected in the weak form. And this implies that past rate of returns and other market data should have no relationship with the future rate of returns. So in this weak form, you put only around very few dots in order to signify that only minimum information affects the stock market. So these are the different forms of efficient market hypothesis, or random walk theory, or forms of market efficiency. It is one and the same. And coming to the next is tests. Like you have different tests for strong form, you have different tests for semi-strong form, and you have different tests for weak form. Let's start with the strong form. Okay, strong form is where you measure it on the basis of mutual fund performance. The strong form of the efficient market hypothesis is separated from the performance of the mutual funds. Like the performance of mutual funds has been tested by Friend in 1972 and by Sharpe in 1966 and by Jensen in 1969. Like studies have also been made by Bloom, Crockett and Williamson. These are the other people who have contributed to the mutual fund performance. The hypothesis like the mutual funds could earn extraordinary returns and constantly achieve a higher than average performance because they are likely to have access to the inside information which is not otherwise known to the public. As a mutual fund is managed by the mutual fund professionals, they'll get to know the inside information. So that's the reason they tend to get higher returns when compared to the ordinary share performance. Okay, so in the strong, I'll just write here, strong form, you have, I'll write short forms, okay. Mutual fund performance. And I just thought I'll not write short forms. Okay, mutual fund performance is for strong form. And another one is semi-strong form. Okay, semi-strong form, there are different tests which are involved in this too. For example, the first test which is involved is market reaction test. Now, what is this market reaction test? It is like an empirical test. This is also done by Fama in 1969. Fisher, Jensen and Roll. Okay, they made the study that they consider the behavior of abnormal security returns at the announcement of stock splits. Whenever the stock splits are announced, they immediately consider the behavior of abnormal securities. That is the first test which can be conducted. That is market reaction test. Market reaction test and not right test. Okay, the second one is announcement effects. Announcement effects. Like what do you mean by announcement effects? This study is done by Beaver. He looked into the information of the announcements of annual earnings and the speed of changes in the security prices. He says that immediately as the announcement of annual earnings is done, it has an impact on the share prices. He examined various level of trade volume and the size of price changes, and according to him, he says that there is absolute values of price changes and the level of trading which is significantly higher during the announcement week. During the announcement week, this has a lot of changes and fluctuations in the level. That is what he states. And in that week following the announcement week, like after the announcement week is done, the following, that is the next week, it returns to the pre-announcement levels. Like before announcement, what were the share prices? That will be the same as after the announcement week. Only during that announcement week, there will be huge changes in its share trading volume and prices and everything. Okay. Let's go on to the last one, that is weak form. In weak form, there are various tests. Actually, for weak form, they have tested more. The first one is simulation. Simulation test. Simulation test. And what is the simulation test? This research is conducted by Roberts and Osborne in 1959. Roberts took the Dow Jones Industrial Averages and compared its level with the variable generated by the random walk mechanism. He concluded that the mechanism of the random walk showed patterns which were very similar to the movements of stock prices. So this was the theory of simulation test. He also showed that there were series of cumulative random numbers closely resembled the actual stock price series. So there was a resemblance, as he says. So this is about the simulation test. And another test he used was series correlation test. Series correlation test. What is the series correlation test? Same, Roberts and Osborne's articles became very popular, and there were many other researchers who tried the security prices, whether they fall in the random walk or not. To test that, many were giving their contributions. But in 1964, Mode took up the test called as series correlation test. In this test, he found that series correlation of weekly security prices, of the week's prices. He said that to measure the association of series of numbers which are separated from the constant, some constant time period, like in association with the level of gross national product in 1 year with the level of gross national product with the previous year. So they have a time period, that is current year and previous year, they have the time period, and they would like to measure the association of series of number during that particular current year and previous year. Okay. Mode measured correlation of price changes of 1 week with the price changes of next week. Simple as that. He does a comparison of weekly changes. So he compares the prices of the current week with the next week or with the previous week. That is series correlation test. Another test is run test. Run test. Another test is filter test. Run test and filter test. Let's discuss this. There is also one more test I'll tell you later. Okay. So run test. What is this run test? Run test was also made by Fama, and he found out that if price changes were likely to be followed by further price changes of the same sign. Okay. He made a run test because correlation coefficient was too often dominated by extreme values, and they influence the results of calculation and determine the correlation coefficient. So he did this run test. It is like you toss a coin. When you toss a coin, like how do you get the run? Like how many times you get same hits, and when will it change to tail when you toss a coin? Okay, keeping that as an example, he did the run test. Okay, the next test which he did was filter test, and this is filter rule test. This was made by Alexander in 1961 to find out if there are any abnormal returns that could earn using the past price data. Okay, using the past price data, can he earn some abnormal return? That was his logic in order to get the filter test. And this filter rule was worked in a manner to say that a stock price was administered by a certain percentage of previous points of his purchase, keeping previous data in mind, previous points of purchase. And if the stock declined from the previous high point, then it should have been sold. If it when it declines is in excess of the specified percentage, he fixed a specified percentage, and if the stock declines beyond that percentage, he should sell it. That is the filter rule. Like how you filter the dust from the coffee or tea, in the same way they keep a price band. Below that, if it goes, you have to sell. Okay, or if the price band is kept and below that it goes, you have to buy. That is the choice which they have to make. And last test under weak form, it is relative strength method. Okay, relative strength method. Levy in 1967. Levy was the person who did this in 1967. He used this method, which was based on the ratio of stock current prices to its average prices. It matches the stock's current prices with the average prices. His research analysis showed that a rule which yielded abnormal portfolio return. This is where you feel interesting. He got abnormal portfolio return, and in 1967 Jensen found that Levy's results were biased. Okay, there will be always another person who to stop them from that getting their fame. So Jensen was the person who said that Levy's results were biased because his results were tested on some data that were used to select the model. Only some data which was used to select the model. That's the reason. And these brought about biases in the test, resulting in the favor of the model. That's the reason that was more favorable to his model. In 1970, Jensen and Bennington they further tested Levy's research, the research of relative strength, and on different sets of data, and found that there were no significant abnormal return. So as it was hyped by Levy, stating that yes, you would get abnormal portfolio returns, Jensen said no, we have tested this model and there is no chance of getting abnormal return. Okay, so these are the different tests which we come across in the efficient market hypothesis test. Hope so it is clear. So till now we have discussed the various concepts under this market efficiency. Let's see once what are the different ways or different concepts which we have studied. So in market efficiency, we discussed its meaning, how efficiently it reflects the information, and types where we distinguished on the basis of operation, that is operational efficiency and informational efficiency, and on the basis of traders like liquidity traders and informational traders. Okay, and random walk theory we discussed, where we discussed the meaning, assumptions, and different forms like strong form where it reflects all, and semi-strong form reflects only public information. Okay, then weak form reflects only historical information. Historical information. These are the three forms. And for each form we have tests. Like strong form we have mutual fund performance, and for semi-strong form we have market reaction and announcement effects, and for weak form we have simulation, series correlation, run test, filter test, and relative strength test. Okay, so this is about the theory of random walk theory and efficient market hypothesis. And next concept we'll be discussing is behavioral finance. So the name itself is signifying what is behavioral finance. So what is behavioral finance? Behavioral finance is the study of the influence of psychology on the behavior of the investors or financial analysis. Like how do they behave when they get some information or at any point of situation, how would they behave. The study of psychology in the behavior of investors, that is, or financial analysts, whoever it is, that is behavioral finance. It also includes subsequent effects on the market, like once they get that behavior, how would they react and what is the effect on the market. Okay, it focuses on the fact that investors are not always rational. They are not always rational, have limits to their self control and are influenced by certain biases. Okay, that is the meaning of behavioral finance. And another concept is there, that is interpretation of behavioral finance. Like how would you interpret the behavioral finance? The first concept under this interpretation is like confusion in making decisions. So interpretation, when you interpret, the first one is confusion. Okay, confusion in making decisions. Like one of the main things that confuse investors in taking the final decision is the presence of choice. Like how would you select when you have 4 good shirts, okay, 4 good dresses. Okay, so the making of choice when you have more number of options, that would confuse people, and they start guessing which would be better, which would suit you. That they start guessing. Okay, and options have when they have options with the same identical product or similar product, investors get confused a lot and they randomly choose any one option that can turn out to be unexpected in the future. Like either it can earn profit unexpectedly or either it can have an unexpected loss too. Okay, that is one thing. Another one is the flow. One is the confusion and another one is the flow. Flow in the sense when the investors have a greater tendency of going with the flow, like whatever others do, you do the same thing. Okay, there are many times where you think in the same direction where with majority of people are thinking in the same thinking that way. Like if people think in the same direction, you also tend to do the same thing. You also think in the same direction. It's very difficult for you to think out of the box. So when you think out of the box and make a right analysis, you make good decisions and make the right choices. So to be this specific point of view of the investors can later lead to be a leader. If you're thinking out of the box, you tend to be a leader than if you think alike, whereas other people think. Okay. The next concept in this is biases. Okay, what do you mean by this biases? Biases is like where decision making process is like a war between the brain and emotions. Okay, so how would you take a decision with all of these behavioral changes in you, or how you're like, even sometimes we feel that every day you have mood swings. Your moods will be different. Someday you'll be very happy and someday you'll be very sad, you'll be angry. So these are the mood swings which happen, and that brings an impact on your behavior. So based on this, what are the different biases you get? The first one is confirmation bias. Okay, confirmation bias, like people they get to whatever information they have in mind, so they get to stick they stick on to it. They confirm from the other rather than confirming it from other sources, or rather than analyzing something, they have their own mind is set. Okay, they try to not deviate it from it. If they have some beliefs that are valid, they are and are based some to ground realities, they stick on to it. They do not change their mind. Okay, whatever information you get, they stick on to it. That is confirmation bias. And another one is mental accounting. I have written the short form. For me, the fear is you would misunderstand. That's the reason I don't write short forms. Okay, mental accounting. Like people tend to view their hard-earned money from a different concept than inherited money. When you get an inherited money, you will be very much free in spending. But when you have your hard-earned money, you think 10 times before you make an investment. So, company which has previously earned a lot of profit, you have a special place in your heart and you stick on to that particular company, and even though if it gives loss in the future, you keep on investing in that particular company as it has given good returns on one time. Okay, so you have that emotional bondage with that. Whatever you have got from your appa nettad alinmara anta heltivalla, the same thing, whatever you have got it from your forefathers, or you try to hold on to it. You do not want to sell it even though it is not good as of now. Okay, then other one is illusion of control. Illusion of control. So illusion of control means this is another bias where they make decisions without taking the help of any external information. This sometimes lead to failures. This is illusion of control. So this theory proves like person was right on one thing will always be right on everything else. Like oh, ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ correct ಆಗೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Whatever he says, that's right. That's not true as of now. You have to analyze each and every situation in order to make the decisions. Okay. The next is hindsight bias. So hindsight. What do you mean by this hindsight? Hindsight bias is where people usually make predictions, and if one of their predictions come true, they will stick on to making more predictions. Like one, oh correct, no, that was right. So I made this prediction. Okay, now I am a good predictor. They start on, they continue predicting each and every situation. Okay, this sometimes lead to bad decision making skills. And another is eliminate emotions. Eliminate emotions. So another bias is eliminate emotions, where one of the biggest hurdle for everyone in decision making is the involvement of emotions. To be a better investor, you have to keep your emotions aside and make the investment based on the statistics. Okay, but sometimes you can't do that. You will be very much loyal and you will be very much dedicated. That sense will be there in you. That is very difficult. That's one of your bias. The better way to eliminate this is to do a right research. It's better you always research on things so that your research always falls in the right direction and helps you out in controlling your emotions and taking the right decision. So next is narrow down your options. This is all suggestions, like on the basis of the research what you make, you can narrow down your options which is available in front of you, and you can make your task easy out. Okay, and you have to come out of all the illusions. No one knows everything. Nobody has control over everything. You have to keep this in mind. Everyone is not perfect. Okay, so to be a better investor, you have to say that no one knows everything, and nobody has control over everything. So no one is perfect. You have to keep this in mind. Okay, and you have to prepare yourself to all kinds of outcomes, whether it leads to success, whether you have to you get losses. but you should plan for your success and forget about your losses. If you have this kind of rational thinking, then only you will be a good investor, and you can prepare yourself for the worst and good outcomes. Okay, then last bias is go old school. Okay, go old school. What is this go old school? You've heard about that. Don't put. I've only told you many times. Don't put all the eggs in one basket, because if the basket drops, all the eggs will fall. Okay. Try to invest in a diversified investment, whereas everything. If it's in one place, the chances of loss are more. So you place it in different places. Either one loss will be the gain of will be balanced with the gain of other. Okay. So this is how you can earn higher profits. So these are the biases, and last concept is critics. So last concept is critics. So what are the different critics? Here the first critic is irrational investors. So irrational investors, many investors seem to be regularly stumbled with their basic instincts and to engage excessively in speculation behavior. So these behavioral finance will lead to such kind of irrational investors. Okay, the next is uncertainty. Uncertainty. Normally, the lack of sufficient information. If you don't have sufficient information about the future trends, how the security prices will change, many of the people resort a host of arbitrary rules of thumb, that is in investment decision making, because future is unknown. So you have developed your own rule as the market is uncertain. Okay, as your role is uncertain. And that is the second critics of this behavioral theory. And another one is deregulation and leverage. Deregulation. Deregulation. Deregulation is where a short-term deviation of the security prices from their investment can be accelerated both by lax financial regulation and easy access to borrowed funds. So it's better you when you get easily borrowed funds and you read the regulations and everything without any behavioral influence. You have to deregulate it. It's easy for you to make the decisions. And irrationality also is like very much important here, because achieving the worst rather than the best is possible in the investment decisions. If you make the right decision with the help of statistics and mathematics and all, you can easily get the returns, rather than you are very much influenced by the behavior. Okay, and it is like the more successful investor, where both of their fight between the irrational impulse and by exploiting those with the others, these all are like the critics which influence. In order to say in a simple term, the behavior should not influence your decision making much. The emotions, the mentality of the biases should not influence you much. You have to rely on the statistics, apply tools, analyze the mathematics tools or economics. You have to use these and make the decision. So this is about the behavioral finance. Hope you have understood. In behavioral finance, we learned its meaning and we learned how do you interpret the behavioral finance, its biases and critics. So this is about what we have learned in today's class. So hope so you have understood. Let's meet with new other concepts in the next class. Thank you.